Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 359. My name is Brando. We welcome his two guests today, two interviews. Later on, we're going to welcome Bryan from the band Fame on Fire under the umbrella Appetite for Discovery. You like that? You like that, Bryan? Oh, I didn't even ask you because he is a difficult last name. I think it's Kuznitz. I'll ask him, but I forgot to ask you. It's Rolli or Rolli?
Rolli, you got it right the first time.
I figured it was, but I get a lot of things wrong. I get a lot of things wrong, which is not a good thing to say, and you don't, because you actually have to be fact checked in order to be on Ultimate Classic Rock.
Doing my best.
You do a great job. It's so cool, and it's been a while that I wanted to have you on. That I've discovered you via Twitter. We discovered each other. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching this on Zoom on our YouTube channel, you just look like me without hair, with hair, right?
We just switched the location of the hair.
You look like me in like my early 20s. I really, that's so, I don't know what this means. So I need to go back and warn you about things that are going to happen to you later in life.
Tell me to prepare. Start growing this in now.
Start taking Propecia now. That's stuff. Anyway, you're, a huge Guns N' Roses fan. I kept seeing your name pop up in all these great articles. I think you did it last year where I don't know if it was just you, but you would break down each song, the anniversary of Use Your Illusion.
Oh, yeah. I did probably the bulk of them, but we had a handful of writers who were taking cracks at different songs each day for the whole month of September. And then we got to round them all up at the end. And yeah, that was a really fun project. I thought I knew kind of the ins and outs of those two records already, but doing the deep dive into each song and digging up old interviews and magazine articles and cover stories from the 90s and stuff, it was a lot of fun to do that project.
How long does something like that take to put that all together?
Yeah, I'd probably say, each individual breakout story probably takes like, maybe 3 to 5 hours to, find the sources, do the research, and then get it all written up into a story form.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think it just depends on how accessible like the original source material was, because you might use Wikipedia as a jumping off point to be like, oh, what'd they say about this? But then there's a gazillion citations and you want to actually find where they come from. And, all that pre-internet era footage is a little harder to come by. But thankfully, Guns N' Roses fans are a pretty passionate bunch, as you and I both know very well. So there is a lot of that stuff that people have, scanned and uploaded on different message boards and forums and stuff like that.
I say it all the time, without the fans, which I am one of, but as I guess now as a podcaster doing this, without my listeners, I wouldn't know half of what I know. Just the amount of things that are put online and fact checking, just a very intelligent fan base. But I kind of want to get to your fan base because I obviously told my story the first episode about just being a Guns N' Roses fan who happens to be in radio, and I combine the two. You're a Guns N' Roses fan who's a journalist, so I'm just want to know a little bit more of your backgrounds, not as a Guns N' Roses, not only as a Guns N' Roses fan, but also as how you got into journalism and writing.
Yeah, well, it's incidentally they kind of go hand in hand for me. I grew up a rock and roll fan my whole life, and got my first Guns N' Roses CD when I was 12, I think. I borrowed Appetite from my neighbor's parents' CD collection. They had a bunch of stuff from the 70s and 80s that I would,
Nice.
we'd hang out and I'd go like grab a handful of CDs every time I go over to their house and go put them on iTunes. So Appetite for Destruction was one of the first albums I fell in love with. And to this day, it's still my favorite album. But I was kind of diving into all that stuff at the same time, a lot of the 70s hard rock and the 80s hard rock and the glam and glam adjacent scene. That was really my bag. And it still is. I remember when it was 2007, there was the Rolling Stone cover story about the 20th anniversary of Appetite for Destruction. Had one of the vintage photos of the bands on the front. Um, and I remember it opened with this like really salacious lead about Axel having sex in the recording studio while recording Rocket Queen. And I'm like 12 years old at the time. So I'm like, this is the craziest band in the world, and I was just like totally captivated and blown away. I felt like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to at the time, which is kind of how I felt when I heard Guns N' Roses the first time too. But it was just such an amazing cover story. Brian Hyatt from Rolling Stone wrote it, so shout out to him. But I mean, from that point forward, I was like, wait a sec, I think I want to do this. This seems like fun. Getting paid to just like hang out with your favorite bands and write stories about them. That sounds great.
Yeah, right. That's exactly, I get paid not very well by the podcast, but just my radio career. I get paid to do this. I mean, it's a blessing when you're able to combine. You gotta love what you do. Otherwise it's not really work, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you love what you do, it's not really work. Do you remember your first, like, 'cause I remember my first interview, which happened, of course, well before the podcast, but my first interview ever was Bumblefoot.
Oh, nice.
Haven't had him on the podcast because that's a whole other story. Appetite for Distortion is just sometimes I don't know. I think GNR management, some people see that, they just see like I'm a tabloid, which I'm not, but that's a whole other story. But this was for Cape Cod radio station, and people know who've listened to the podcast know the story. But that was I remember, I'll never forget it. My first interview, Bumblefoot. Do you remember yours?
I think that my first interview was probably, so I moved to Austin in 2013 to start going to college down here. I majored in journalism, and the first story, like the first band profile I did was on an Austin-based band called Scorpion Child. Kind of hard rock. They sort of tapped into like that kind of stoner rock sort of thing with like Zeppelin and Deep Purple influences and stuff too.
Okay.
Just like a good heavy rock band. But I interviewed their singer for a story that got published in the online only student magazine. But I had seen them on a festival a couple months earlier and like totally fell in love with the band. So even at that point, I was like, oh man, this feels really cool. And did a bunch of local artist interviews in college, and slowly scaled my way up to doing some bigger ones. I think my first kind of like big interview from somebody in like a like an established band was Billy Gold from Faith No More.
Okay.
That was in 2015. Yeah.
I keep getting rejected by Faith No More. I keep trying for Mike Patton or somebody from the band. That's my point. They see Guns N' Roses, they just think Guns N' Roses podcast. And I'll be like, I don't have to ask you, Mike Patton, did you really piss in Axl's shoes? I can just talk to him about whatever. It just happens to be Appetite for Distortion. I make the rules. So I think I'm still better, and I'm a little jealous, but you know what? I respect you because you had a great interview last year. Can you talk to us about how Slash was, your interview with Slash?
Oh yeah, of course, man. I mean, I don't think I have to explain to you how that's been, kind of like a unicorn interview. I've been chasing that forever, and honestly, I was still kind of in disbelief and doubt going up to like probably the morning of. I figured something was going to happen and it would fall through, because I started getting the press releases and emails about the new Slash album probably, I don't know, 6 months before it was out. So like at the very beginning, I was like, hey, just want to put it on your radar now. Would love to set something up at your convenience. No pressure, whenever. And tried to play it cool, and then started ramping up the emails a little more as we got closer. But thankfully it amazingly all came together. It did happen. When I was on the call, it was a 20-minute phone call. And honestly, it was like, I was mostly just trying to keep myself from hyperventilating, before we got on the phone. And while I was in it, I could sense that it was going pretty well, but honestly, I was kind of just, my nerves were kind of taking over. So I sort of just went on autopilot and, had kind of thought about it so much and prepared so much that it was like I was able to get through it. But it wasn't really until after we wrapped up and I hung up the phone and like sat back for a sec that I was like, wow, man, that just happened.
Hmm.
Couldn't believe it. But it was great. And I was honestly kind of grateful for, the parameters and the kind of short time frame. Just because it was like, I was so nervous and so excited. I hope to interview Slash again in the future and maybe we can do a longer sit down or something. But, for this first time, it was like,
Sure.
keep the training wheels on so I can just get through this in one piece.
I respect and I identify with a lot of that stuff. It's like when I was on the phone with Alice Cooper for 15 minutes. It's like, obviously I want to speak to him for longer, but it gives you focus. It's like, I don't have time to mess around. I got to ask good questions. I got to make the most of my opportunity here.
Yeah. I got 15 minutes with Alice a couple years ago too. And I was the same way. That's when I was still in college. I was an intern at a local paper and that was my first like big, like real big interview that somebody who doesn't do this would like, know that name. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's the name my wife always uses when she's like, oh, he has a podcast. He interviews people. And she always says Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
And I'm so, I'm so egoless. And so I need to have more confidence in myself. So I always have to put myself down. So I'm like, it was 15 minutes. He was on the phone a couple years ago, whatever. But it's still a big deal. I have to accept. And it was also interesting, and it ties in this last thing. I got a call just maybe like an hour ago from Peter Napoliello. He was the former senior vice president of Geffen during the Appetite era. He's been on the podcast a couple times. He randomly calls me. He's from New York, like me, a Jew like me. So I don't know, maybe that's why he likes me. But he lives in Estonia now, which the only reason I knew of Estonia before was from Encino Man. So just to show you if anyone gets that reference. So he just calls to check in and everything. And he's like, you know what? I feel comfortable telling you this. Because he still talks to Slash every now and then. And he's like, I called him on his birthday. I texted him and Slash got to me right back. We were on the phone for like an hour. He's like, everything is just great in the Guns N' Roses camp. Everything is just really good. And then I just go on to say, like, one day I just hope to get a Slash interview one day. And he's like, you're being a putz. It's going to happen for you when it's meant to happen. He's like, remember, whenever you doubt yourself, remember me calling you a putz. I'm like, okay, I'll remember that, Peter. So thank you. But I think that is awesome. And that's on, if people haven't read it, it's on Ultimate Classic Rock, right? And is that the only publication you write for?
That's right. Yeah. At the moment, I am full-time there. I had been doing the freelancing grind for several years, but now I'm staffed at Ultimate Classic Rock. I'm grateful for that.
Good for you, man. Because this is, again, it's almost like looking into a mirror, a youth mirror. Because while broadcast journalism was my major, right? Exactly. It wasn't radio. So I have a journalism, there's a part of my heart that it will always be a journalist. So I respect the grind and the freelance, and that is a tough thing, just to wait for your next gig and what article it's going to be, and you hope for staffing and I know in being in radio, in an industry that's changing. Let's just say that, in the industry that's not the way it used to be, with newspapers and everything, but things are changing. You said something the other day, and I tweeted. I like. By the way, people should follow Bryan Rolli on Twitter, not just BTS fans. By the way, you have a huge BTS following, which remind me.
I do, yeah, and that came from my freelancing days when I was writing for Forbes pretty regularly.
Okay.
I wrote a lot about them because a lot of the job was, following kind of the business and the trends of popular music. And it's a really, as I was doing that, it was a really fun thing to observe and analyze and dig into. And I mean, BTS are just constantly making moves and, kind of doing some paradigm shifting things as far as, non-Western artists in the US. So it was pretty amazing to watch and write about. And yeah, I guess a lot of people agreed. So yeah, I've got a pretty sizable following of BTS fans, but I'm always trying to say, hey, I have multitudes. My first love is always rock and roll. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to
Yeah.
follow me with that too.
It's primarily rock and roll. You're a great follow. It's just funny whenever you tweet anything BTS, those are the ones. I think you tweeted something the other day like, "Oh, my ratio is showing up" or something. It's just the amount of likes and retweets when it's anything about BTS, even though there's just some really funny, rock tweets you put out there. But I had put out something, as I always say during every podcast, the conversation continues in between the broadcasts. So I put up a picture of Axel giving the finger just for some reason. And I put, what if, parentheses, the world, because I always have to have a pun in there or something, play on words. Axel released a statement saying, so he would say this wasn't being speculation. If you release a statement, Twitter, whatever, no new music is coming. And there goes happy touring. And how would you react? And honestly, all my platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, a lot of responses all over the place. People would be upset, and there were people that wouldn't care. I'm happy if he's happy. I would be disappointed, but I would understand a lot of different things. So I like your response. So I want you to elaborate. I'd be grateful for his tactic permission to finally obsessing over something else. So are you? I'm the one with the GNR podcast. So you're obsessing over GNR as much as me, or over new music? Talk to me.
I will tell you, in the weeks leading up to the reunion announcement, late 2015, right at the beginning of 2016, I had more than one person tell me like, "Hey man, I think you should chill. I think you should take it easy and maybe like stop Googling this like every 5 minutes and constantly refreshing social media for more updates. Like, just relax a bit." I was like, I swear, man, I'm gonna have a heart attack. If they don't just announce something right now, I'm gonna lose it. But yeah, I would say that my GNR fandom is pretty obsessive, and I try to keep it in check until the right time and place when I'm among my kin, like I am right now. But yeah, that's always how it's been for me. And I was at the show last summer at I think it was MetLife, when I think it was like the second night they played Absurd, but it was the night they announced it was gonna come out on streaming like that day at midnight, and I was like beside myself. I was freaking out.
I was at that show. I was like, what did he just say?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, did they actually just say you can download something? That was crazy.
I was like, am I hearing this correctly? And I'm like up in the nosebleeds too. So I was very literally like, I might be mishearing this, but I think that's what he just said. But yeah, I still hold out hope that more GNR music is coming out somewhere down the line. I don't hold my breath for it. I try not to think about it too much because they operate on their own timeline. They do things on their schedule and not on the fans' schedule. So, but still, I hold out hope. And yeah, if there was a statement from the band, no more music, no new music ever, we're just touring, I would be disappointed, maybe not surprised, a little relieved, like I said, that I could just start obsessing over something else.
That's kind of why I asked it. Like, would you just be like, okay, at least now I know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would be disappointed, of course, but at least now I know. But I guess I know you really couldn't deep dive into it with Slash, but I guess with your research that you've done, it's just something that I guess don't have an answer for it. I guess nobody does other than Axel. But why put out Absurd? Why put out Hard School and not say anything? You'll get the interviews with Slash saying music is coming this summer. We're in this summer.
Right.
So it's just I don't know. Does it go harken back to Chinese democracy where you're afraid to put a date on something, and you rather just not say anything, and just when it happens you'll be grateful.
Yeah.
That's my assumption, but I want to know. That's how I am with everything. Tell me yes or no, even if it breaks my heart.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's always good to remember that, obviously, like, I think people, fans and non-fans as well, everybody, it's easy to make a punchline of the Chinese democracy timeline. But this is a band that, dating back to their first album, I mean, they have always had a tenuous relationship with release dates. I mean, stuff was always getting pushed back. Back then, it might have been a few months to a year, but even then, for a baby band, like, that was a huge amount of time to delay things. Whereas now it's, who knows how long things get delayed, or if or when they'll ever come out. But yeah, I don't know. I can't even fathom being in a band and a business entity and an operation as big as Guns N' Roses at this point. I'm sure there's so many moving parts that,
Right.
outside observers can't even understand. Who knows what it takes to just get one song out there.
I know, and I think that's why it's almost a miracle that Absurd and Hard School came out. I know Absurd is polarizing. What do you think of it? I'm a fan. I've said it. I wasn't a fan of Silkworms, but whatever it is about Absurd and the peas full of maggots. Sorry, I don't even feel comfortable reciting the lyrics.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, right. It's like, what do you think about it? Do you think it was it was kind of a continuation of Chinese democracy, or was it maybe a troll job by Axel? Hey, you want new music? Here you go. Here's Absurd. Don't ask me again.
I truly don't know what compelled them to release that song first. It will always puzzle me. To me, it feels, I mean, musically, it really feels like a continuation of "Oh My God," which I have always enjoyed
Me too.
a lot. I don't think I like "Absurd" quite as much as "Oh My God." I think that's one of the songs where it's like I will cop to kind of enjoying it because I am genetically predisposed to enjoy every Guns N' Roses song, no matter how weird or polarizing it is.
Fair
Um,
enough.
However, it is not a song that I would recommend to other people to listen to unless they are fellow diehards. Hard School, I would tell anyone to listen to. Absurd, acquired taste.
That is very fair, and I agree with all of your points. This is why you're becoming one of my favorite journalists. You and Matt Wake, you're good eggs.
Wake is awesome. Yeah,
Yes,
love that guy.
him and I, we bond over the baldness here. I don't have that with you. By the way, what is that that poster behind you? Is that like White Lion or no? It's Motley Crue. Who is that?
That's Feel Good era Motley Crue. And
Okay.
then that small one up there is a live Guns N' Roses poster from the Illusion tour.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I found it at a used record store years ago, and I was like, "Hey man, is that poster for sale?" It was just like buried on the wall. And he was like, "Dude, if you can get it off the wall, it's yours. I don't care."
Hmm. I'm going to talk to it's the next episode that I'm doing after you, our friend Doug Goldstein, who of course was the GNR manager during that time, and Pyro Pete. He did all the pyrotechnics during the tour. I mean, I can't even imagine his story with a name like Pyro Pete. But that said, I mean, this was one of those fun Twitter questions, social media questions you get asked. Like, if you could go back in time, what concert would you go to, or what sporting event? So for me, concert, I don't know if it was a specific one I could say, but the Use Your Illusion era, I feel like I've just missed out on. I was too young. My first concerts were Ninja Turtles. Years later, Eve Six in high school just wasn't. GNR wasn't in my. I didn't see them until 2002 with Mr. Buckethead, who, by the way, had guitars stolen from him, which is fucked up. So if you see Buckethead's stolen guitars, they're out there. If you want, there's info out there if you need. That's another side story. But I don't know, man. What do you like? If I just want to be able to experience the danger. And I know people, maybe because it's 2020, if you were there, you would not want the threat of a riot, or you're upset when you're waiting 3 hours in between, Metallica and Guns N' Roses. Or I still wish I experienced that Axl Rose. So what about you? Do you have I guess that's a two-part question. You're too young to have gone to that, right? How old are you?
I am 27,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
would
well,
not,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No
I would
way.
not have seen guns on during any of their so-called heyday.
Yeah, yeah.
My first gun show was 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, but I am there with you. My favorite live era of guns is the Illusion Tour. To me, my favorite of the kind of pro shot HD footage from their heyday is the Live in Tokyo '92. Um, I would
Sure.
I watch that show a million times. I think if there's one show I would like to see from them, it would be Paris '92 when they brought out Steven Tyler and Joe Perry for their encore, because Aerosmith is another one of my favorite bands, just about neck and neck with Guns, and to
Okay.
see them on stage together would be amazing.
Yeah, that's another thing too. The Paris '92. I would have only been 9, and to have experienced that on pay per view when pay per view was still relatively new and exciting, and uh, I would love to have seen that Warren Beatty rant. You know,
Oh yeah.
those like that. That's the Axel. I mean, I am obviously so glad that he is smiling on stage. He's hugging people. He's waving. I don't know. He's like Oprah out there.
Yeah.
He's just like giving
You
out
get a song. You
happiness
get a song.
yeah, yeah. Not a new song. Well, maybe Absurd and Heart School. You can't say that anymore. Well, that's a whole other discussion. Oh, it's he made fun of himself. Here's a new song I wrote 20 years ago.
Yeah.
On the recent tour about I think Hard School. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. Bryan, you're gonna have to come back. You're not leaving yet, but you're gonna have to come back on all these side things I want to pick your brain about. So when did you said you saw them in 2011? Who's opening that? I forget that year. What was
Uh,
that?
the Pretty Reckless, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Taylor Momsen must have been like a teenager at the time.
You, you know, it's funny. All this is tying together. Yeah, because I have never seen the Pretty Reckless. I want to.
Mhm.
I share. I think even Ultimate Classic Rock found one of these things. So like, because all my interviews, some of them are long, and there's a lot of good quotes in there. And I don't expect everybody to pay attention for like an hour. So I started making like highlight clips and everything on my YouTube page. And I did it like a while ago with Taylor Momsen when she was on. And I asked about, I don't know if you've seen a picture with her and Axl Rose. It's
I
during his
might have seen if you. I feel like you might have shared it recently.
probably,
Okay.
probably. It's during that Fu Manchu era of Axl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the 2011 version of Axl.
Mhm.
And whereas most pictures, Axl's not smiling. You know, he's like Kanye. He's just like stern, stoic.
Stone-faced. Yeah.
He is just like, I got my hands around Taylor Momsen. He's got that kind of look. So I asked her about it. I put out a 2-minute clip, and it was recently her 29th birthday.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when you mentioned teenager, that's what makes me think of this, because I'm like, she's only 29. Damn. You know, because she's been in our consciousness since she was like a kid.
Yeah. Seriously.
Right. So, but I bring this up too because for whatever reason, maybe because it was her birthday, that clip has like over 1,000 views in the past day, and it's over a year old. I'm
That's
just
so weird when that happens. Yeah.
yeah. So just a reminder to people, a lot of good stuff on my YouTube page that you may have missed.
Yeah, check it out.
Why
Check it
why
out.
people find just now, like, why are you finding this? Whatever, as long as you find it, I don't care. What did you think of that show, that first two? Because I've spoken about my Buckethead experience. Tell me
Yeah.
about 2011 GNR.
I mean, I thought it was awesome. I loved it. I was like 16, I think. Went with my mom. It was Susquehanna Bank Center in Camden, New Jersey. I do remember my only like negative takeaway is that the vocals were mixed way too low. However, what I did hear the vocals, Axl was in great voice. I thought he sounded great most of that 2011, 2012 stretch of time. Those dates, he was really on fire. Um, I was not, I wasn't too much of like a purist about the lineup at the time. I was just grateful to be seeing any iteration of Guns N' Roses at any point. I thought DJ and Bumblefoot and Richard all crushed it. Everybody was running around the stage like a madman. The lights were great. The set list was really great. It was an awesome awesome show. I do remember at one point in the show there must have been some sort of scuffle up front because Axl did stop the set and walk up to the lip of the stage, and he wasn't yelling, he was kind of talking in his terrifying, like, whispery baritone, but he was like, "Is there a problem up here?"
Is there a problem?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, "Oh man, are we gonna see some fireworks right now?" But I guess everyone up front got it together pretty quickly after that. So there were little, elements of that danger still, that unpredictability, but went off without a hitch. It was a really good show.
Yeah, there's still the elements of that, like with the recent tour with all the sound issues they've had, and when they had to stop start a string, should I forget what city that was in, but talking to fans doing those fan reviews, it's like, is this it? Is this when this all implodes? And it doesn't, and it's great. And Guns N' Roses just announced more shows, Singapore, Bangkok. They're going all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I feel so bad for my friends in Glasgow.
Yeah,
because people keep asking me, do you think they're going to come back? Yeah, I think they'll come back. I don't
know when.
I just don't know when. Yeah, I guess it's the same thing. That's it with Guns N' Roses. I don't know if soon is the word. You'll see
right.
it.
Yeah, soon. Relative to what?
Right. Yeah, I know. Who else other than Slash have you gotten to interview in the GNO world?
I'm pretty sure only I spoke to Matt Sorum in 2018, but it was not really music related. It was about a platform he launched called Artbit, which was it was like I'm gonna be honest, I still don't really know how to describe it because, like, tech is not my bag, but it was like an artist kind of discovery platform that was like community based, but it was like it operated on the blockchain. And I'm really, like, I'm embarrassing myself, but I don't know what any of those words in that order really mean.
Sounded good to me.
Yeah, he was here in Austin for South by Southwest. He was like up in like a Holiday Inn hotel room basically, and it was just like really nice, sterile, cold room. And he was doing 30-minute interviews, so it's like one journalist is done, they walk out, and you walk in, and it was kind of like it wasn't really an interview so much as a monologue because I was just like so clueless as to like all the tech aspects of it. I kind of just let him talk for most of it. I did a Q&A with him for Forbes, and it was pretty much just me like sharing what he told me verbatim because I'm like, I got nothing to add to this.
You make me feel better about myself because that's sometimes what I do. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but I'll report it. I don't know either. One of my brothers is, it's not exactly the same, but he's all into Bitcoin and, digital money. And I'm like, I don't know. I got an ATM card. I'm good.
Yeah. Right. If I can't see it and hold it, I don't really know. I don't know what it is.
Like Guns N' Roses music.
Yeah, exactly.
See it.
It exists in the abstract, but it's not really tangible.
Yeah, I know. In leak form, but even then, did it really happen?
Seriously. Actually, I feel guilty because maybe like a year ago, we at Ultimate Classic Rock, I did a roundup of like the 10 best unreleased Guns N' Roses songs.
Yeah, you did.
And I did, and I just wasn't really thinking about the ramifications of that, but I just wanted to share some good tunes. So I linked to them on like YouTube and SoundCloud, and very quickly most of them got taken down. So sorry to all you folks out there. I hope you had downloaded them offline beforehand.
Yeah, that was always the case. Were you reached out, did the camp reach out to you at all?
No.
Okay.
No, they just took the YouTube links down, and like the article is still up. It's just all the embeds are like pretty much dead.
Been there, done that. Yeah, I can understand that. That was never an issue for me when I've spoken about copyright or takedowns in the past. If it's unreleased and it's not supposed to be out, it shouldn't be out there. But it's a lot of like the footage that, well, there used to be a lot of use your illusion footage on YouTube, and people are waiting like, oh, when's the box set? When's the box set? Of course, I don't know. As management stiff arms me. I'm lucky who I've gotten to interview, regardless. But Tim Tricoli, who was on the podcast a while ago, he's a huge Guns N' Roses collector. So much so that the band contacted him for the box, the $1,000 box set.
Oh, for the Appetite, the skull box.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Which I mean, it looks cool, but I mean, now it might be being sold for $200, but at the time it was 1,000.
Yeah.
That he contributed some of his stuff, so he did the same thing for this Use Your Illusion box set, and he just says to have a little patience.
All we need.
Yeah, I mean, the anniversary was last year, but
Yeah. I mean,
whatever.
that means they're still like 2 years ahead of schedule by their standard.
You're right. It's all relative. Soon it's all relative.
Yeah. I would kill. I mean, I can only hope that there's at some point in time, like some properly reissued, remastered HD live footage, whether it's audio or video or something. I mean, those shows are just like begging to be updated and put out. It would be such a treat.
I know. Yeah, that was something else too, where like when I asked before, like, hey, there's no new music coming out, like if Axl released this hypothetical question, and there were some that said, I'm okay with no new music, just release some of the old stuff, remaster stuff. I'd be happy with that, outtakes and things. So that's something else. I just wanted to see. It was a wide range of answers. It wasn't just all disappointment, which was good. I think people were understanding. As long as he's happy, I'm happy, and that's how I feel. Keep doing it. As somebody who missed the Appetite era, just like with you, and Use Your Illusion era, that now we're in an era that this is not in this lifetime, forever in a lifetime. It's transformed, and they just keep going and going. Hopefully, I just hope this band keeps doing it. Like, I know some people make fun of the Rolling Stones, but as long as they're happy and they're still performing and people are paying, they want to pay. Who cares, man? Who cares? Let me ask you, as a journalist, as a wannabe journalist to another, do you ever, for another question that not a question, I just put out a wish that I would love for another Kurt Loder, Axl Rose interview. I mean, I would love for any Axl Rose interview. You foresee him doing a proper one again? I know he had that China Exchange one a few years ago, but and then of course Eddie Trunk several years ago before that, a couple times.
Oh yeah.
It's just all these years into the reunion, and it's not like he and Slash have sat down together. You would see this. I mean, look what we saw with the stadium tour. All the bands got together, do pressers. This band does it. So I'm just curious, do you foresee Axl ever doing another interview?
Yeah. I think the way things are going right now, it just doesn't seem like they have any like need to or desire to. And I mean, they were such a tumultuous band. Their relationship with the press, was so volatile in the 90s, 80s and 90s, that I think, like, I understand that instinct for self-preservation and just wanting to, not cause any unnecessary rift or drama. And I think the media landscape has changed so much since they were actively participating in it. I totally understand their reasoning for like not wanting to play that game now. Plus, I mean, I don't know if it was someone in the band or like maybe like management or publicity around them, but I remember hearing somebody made the point like they don't need to do press anymore. They can sell out stadiums around the world for the rest of their lives without doing a single interview. So there's really no like tangible benefit to them doing any sort of like big tell-all sit-down interview like that. As a fan, I would love for that to happen. But yeah, I don't really foresee it happening unless someday out of the blue Axl decides to drop a memoir, which would for sure be like the coolest memoir in history.
Agreed. And I agree with everything you just said, unfortunately, but I get it. Why do it? Why upset the apple cart? Doug says that all the time. There's no reason to. This band doesn't, their advertising is always so minimal. Even if they do it, like for the box set, weren't there like weird advertisements during movie previews? And, sometimes you'll see billboards, but nothing like pressers, but they're Guns N' Roses. Everyone knows who they are. They don't really need to do it now that especially now that Slash is back, that people aren't asking anymore. Like, is it really Guns N' Roses? That whole conversation we were having for a while. I mean, there are still, of course, us, the hardcore fans, that still may have that conversation, but to the masses, as long as it's Axl and Slash, people are going to keep showing up. That's just how it's going to be.
I think another problem is like with any kind of legacy artist, especially one that has like a pretty, bumpy past. So many, like there's so many, like kind of fickle fans or like just surface level fans who, happen to work in media that it's like, they are probably correct in assuming that like a lot of people would just want to ask about the weird, uncomfortable stuff, the drama, or like, make jokes at their expense and kind of present them as questions. If they could trust that people would actually ask questions that are coming from a place of like sincerity and real interest in the band, then maybe they would feel more willing to do interviews. But with so many years of that behind them, I again don't I guess blame them for it.
Neither do I. Mick Wall, Kerrang, Bob Guccione Jr., Andy Setcher, they ruined it for us, Bryan. Us honest journalists. I don't try to dig for dirt. Whenever there's clickbait out of my podcast, it's not because of a question that I asked. It's out of my hands at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know. You keep doing the good work you're doing. I'll keep trying to do the good work that I'm doing, and hopefully one of us can land an Axl interview, which would just be,
dude. Fingers crossed. That's the real one. I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I'll keep holding out hope.
Yeah, man. I will too, obviously, as well. I want to have you on again. I'm going to show you, so I'm not going to be completely distracted. I'm being texted by Doug Goldstein.
Nice.
So the episode after this one, after we're done recording, it's going to be Doug Goldstein's going to be my co-host. Of course, former Guns N' Roses manager, was with the band for 17 years, started out as tour manager and up until the Chinese era, until he quit. Mm-hmm. And he's going to bring on Pyro Pete. Pyro Pete did all the pyrotechnics. I can say that word. Hey, I'm still missing a tooth. Hey.
Yeah.
Next week, I'm getting the screw in. So I don't know. This might be one of the last few episodes I do for a while. Pyro Pete did all the pyrotechnics for the Use Your Illusion tour. So as we know, a lot of fireworks, literal and metaphoric, were set off during that tour. So, and what we're going to try is we're going to also invite a fan to come on who was there, give his experience. And I'm going to try maybe take some calls. I haven't done that yet on a podcast. We'll see how it goes. So stick around. That's the next episode. This episode, though, is not done. Coming up right now, actually, it's for Appetite for Discovery, Fame on Fire. But Bryan, before we do that, any articles coming out? Anything on the horizon that we should be aware of?
I mean, I'm always writing stuff, whether it's news or reviews or interviews. I recently, nothing that I know that is explicitly Guns N' Roses related right now. I recently published interviews with Blackie Wallace from Wasp and Michael Monroe, formerly of Hanoi Rocks, now doing a solo thing. And we'll probably have a couple part 2s coming out. Blackie talked to me about the US tour that Wasp has coming up this fall. Michael's got a zillion things in the pipeline as far as reissues and other multimedia projects. He's a super busy guy. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for those. And we'll see what else happens. I also, if you don't mind me plugging this a little bit, I'm a musician myself. I've got my first solo project coming out under the name Ne'er-Do-Well. So I'll be dropping a single probably late August and an EP probably late September. So, if any folks want to listen to some cool new tunes, keep your eyes and ears peeled for that.
Yeah, on the 35th anniversary of Appetite, you posted the Night Train solo that you did.
Oh yeah, I did.
And look at this. I preface this with, I like you, Bryan. You're coming back on. I'm jealous of your hair. I'm jealous of the Slash interview. I'm jealous you can play guitar, but I'm appreciative of your time.
Likewise, man. Thank you very much.
You got it. So stick around. Appetite for Discovery, Fame on Fire with Bryan. And now we tune to Appetite for Discovery where we bring you the latest in what we can find in new music. Of course, Guns N' Roses will talk about if they ever have new music. That's another story for another time. But welcome to the podcast, Bryan. Oh, I know I just asked you how to pronounce your last name, but I already forgot it. Kuznitz?
Kuznitz, yes, that was right.
Oh, I got it. Yes. Perfect. Bryan Kuznitz from Fame on Fire. I can say welcome to the podcast, but maybe I should say welcome to the chaos.
Hey, you love the puns, huh?
I really do. You like that. So for those who don't know, Fame on Fire, they have a new album out. Welcome to the chaos. You perhaps may have seen them on tour. They're all over the United States. They're doing some dates in Canada, all over Octane, right, on Sirius XM.
Yes.
Thanks, man, first of all, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where are you located now? You're a Florida band. Are you in Florida right now?
Hell yeah, I'll never leave.
You'll never leave Florida. So as a New Yorker, who I guess the stereotype is going to say when I retire, I'm going to go down to Florida. What's so but everybody else in the world, Florida is like, oh, Florida, man. Do you take those offense to that? You know, the crazy stuff, the stories that come out of Florida, bath salts and everything.
Yeah, I mean, like that's you're gonna find that really anywhere. But it's just Florida. Florida has made itself very famous. But the craziest people, I've been to the majority of these states. The craziest people are not in Florida. They are not. They're usually in Oregon. But
okay. But you are right. There's crazy people everywhere. It's just, I feel bad. I'm like, I've been to Florida. I met Floridians. They're nice, but then they have, right. Because we have listeners all over the world. So where I have, I've been doing episodes lately talking to fans from other countries where Guns N' Roses is. And I find how ignorant I am about other countries. So it's like, I can only imagine what people think of Florida. So
I'm trying to make the Florida name good again.
Gotcha. And I don't know if you can see if you're watching on Zoom, my cat Blackie Clawless just decided to join me.
Blackie Clawless.
Yeah, you like that?
I love that.
So if you can tell me a little bit about yourself growing up in, are you from Orlando? Like where in Florida? And like what got you into music and this path that you're currently on?
So I grew up probably 30 minutes from where I am now. I'm in Boynton Beach, which is part of West Palm Beach. So, Palm Beach County area, and grew up here and, played in the local music scene, did that whole thing, played at all the shitty venues that you can possibly think of, growing up as just, a local musician, and then eventually moved to Orlando. And that's actually where Fame on Fire formed, was in Orlando. But we're all from here. Everybody is from here. Everyone's from South Florida, but we all moved up to Central Florida.
Oh,
I don't know why. We wanted to get out. We wanted to get away from our parents. We wanted to be away from our hometown.
Okay.
I hate my hometown punk rock kid type thing. We just wanted to leave. And so being up in Orlando, that's where we formed Fame on Fire. We all grew up as friends. Blake, Alex, and myself, we all literally lived across the street from each other.
That's cool. And to see the success that you're having now. And for those who also don't know, Florida is huge. It's like New York. It's saying that it can mean so many different things, so many different, kind of areas. You mentioned kind of like that punk rock, I'll get out of my hometown kind of thing. Is that what music you grew up on? Like what were the bands that you grew up listening to that kind of inspired your sound?
Yeah, I definitely grew up on not so much the older 80s, 90s punk rock, but definitely pop punk, anything from Blink-182, Sum 41, and then the heavier side of things when I got into Avenged Sevenfold, Disturbed. The oldest band I listened to, when I was the youngest, was Linkin Park. I remember when that album came out, Hybrid Theory. I think it was 2001. I was a kid. I remember I was just sitting there playing with Crazy Bones, listening to this album, and it was the good days, man. Playing Pokemon, playing with Crazy Bones. It was fucking. I miss those times. And Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory just came out. It was amazing.
That's funny. I'm slightly older than you. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? I know I'm 38.
I just turned 30.
All right, congratulations. So I'm slightly older, but I have brothers. We're all 4 years apart. So they got me into Pokemon at the time. So yeah, I could have done a Pokemon podcast, but that's another story for another time. But I remember Linkin Park. But it was, I guess, maybe my freshman year of high school, and just waking up and still putting on MTV when they had music videos, and just like, whoa, this is different. And honestly, obviously tying it into my Guns N' Roses theme, it was like one of those bands like, whoa, this doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard before. That's what Linkin Park was, absolutely. So I can see that. So yeah, for those who don't know, you kind of have that style, the Linkin Park style, the kind of the rap rock, the heaviness, like you mentioned, Avenged Sevenfold. So I don't know, how would you classify people who haven't heard Fame on Fire yet, but hopefully they have?
Shit.
I know it's one of those, like they ever see the movie Airheads?
I feel like I don't remember it much, but I feel like it's one of those like blockbuster movies, like old blockbuster movies.
Oh God, you make me. You need to, with Brendan Fraser and Adam Sandler and Steve Buscemi, when they were trying to describe their sound. They're like power slop. I don't know.
Yeah, Fame on Fire is just it's basically just like I try to sound like Chester Bennington, while my band tries to sound like modern Seven Dust.
Oh wow, that's cool. I like that. That's really, if you said that, I think most people, like, without even hearing, I've heard the music and I like it. That even has me more intrigued. I was like, wow, I didn't put that together, and I'm gonna go back and listen for that. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much Seven Dust influence in the guitars and the drums. But we try to write the catchiest fucking choruses that we can, the catchiest songs that we can. That's the goal, is to write catchy shit, and we really go for that. We're not trying to be overly artistic and do weird keys and shit, although we do some weird keys, but I feel like we still make it accessible. So
you do write about making it accessible and not making it complicated, but you do write about some serious stuff in your own way. So one of the singles that's out on the new album, Ketamine. On this podcast, I talk about mental health and addiction a lot. It ties in not just with Guns N' Roses, but with my own life. I haven't drank alcohol in 7 years. Pot is another story, but I have nothing hard. My life, I go to therapy. I'm on Cymbalta, all these things. So whenever there's a chance for someone who's comfortable talking about mental health, and it is cool that you put music out there that I'm sure a lot of your fans relate to. Can you just talk about that song a little bit?
Yeah. So Ketamine, for me, when I was in 6th grade, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And I know a lot of people will write that off, be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It kind of is. I feel like it's very understudied, to be honest, because there's a lot of things that come with ADHD. Because I have very bad anxiety. I get in very depressive states. And so, these kind of things all kind of wrap into it. But anyways, I digress. When I was in 6th grade, they decided to put me on Adderall. And I took Adderall for 6 years in a row, every single day. And when I turned, I think I was like, how old was I? 18 or 19, something like that. When I was that old, I was like, I want to get off of this shit because I want to feel emotions again. Because I didn't feel emotions. I was the most sterile, emotionless person ever. And so I got off of it. And right when I got off of it, all these emotions kind of flooded my fucking brain. And it was wild. I remember luckily at the time I had a great girlfriend, and I was like, I can't live right now. I can't live with this. I don't really remember it too much because it was a while ago, but I remember just losing the complete will to live, and just thinking I can't live through this. This is you talk about pain. It's it's just such a mental pain, and you don't understand why. You can't make sense of any of it. And so I didn't want to exist anymore. I didn't want to live anymore. And so luckily I had a girlfriend that was able to talk me out of it. And I was like, okay, great. Then of course I get back on Adderall again after being off of it for a year and being okay and drinking coffee, get back on Adderall. And then the same shit happens to me. Go through withdrawals, and it's for me, like at the time, I remember we were talking about, someone was talking about ketamine, and it was one of those things where it's like, well, they're like, I'm like, what does it do? They're like, oh, it's like a Xanax, but like better. I was like, oh, that's fucking crazy. So if I take ketamine, I'll be able to, you know, get off this drug and not want to kill myself. Because, you know, that's I have so much anxiety from being off of drugs. I feel like my receptors are just completely fried. And so to me, it looked like ketamine was the outlook. Like that was the play. I never ended up taking it. I've never taken it, but that song is about, that's my only option. Like that was my pretty much last resort. And now to this day, I don't drink caffeine because I can't, because I genuinely have, like, my receptors are genuinely fried. If I have caffeine, I'll have a panic attack. It's instant. I don't smoke weed. I genuinely don't take anything. I'm very sober besides alcohol. I do drink alcohol, but I'm very I'm good with alcohol, you know. I don't overly consume it or anything like that, but yeah, it's I was an involuntary drug addict in a sense, because, you know, the doctors, they did the test on me and they said, this is what your kid needs. Give them Adderall. Yeah. And that's just, you know, big pharma just fucking everybody once again.
You know, I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
I felt that way, you know, almost basically throughout my 20s, when I finally decided to go to therapy when I was 26. And I didn't want to beforehand. I could fix myself kind of situation. Didn't think I needed medication either. You know, I didn't want to be here. And long story short, because I don't want to, my listeners know, but I'm just letting you know this. But you know, thankfully I went to therapy because she saved my life. And again, I didn't want to be on medication. I was a homebody, but now I'm married. I got cats. I have a good job, you know, thankfully. But over the 9 years ago, I lost my dad to mental health, and it's you know, it's interesting. What I think about, and especially with your story, is you have to have the right person. It's not just prescribing medication, because it wasn't just me getting on medication. It was that I had the right therapist, and who's still in my life. She was supposed to come to my wedding, but she got lost. The whole other story. But I don't know if who my dad was talking to. And again, when you're kids and you're trying to form these emotions and understand them, but you're not allowed to because of this medication, I think that's very dangerous. So, you know, I'm glad that you're still relatively, I'm sorry, it's the older brother in me. You're still relatively young and understanding that. But I did the same as you. I tried. I'm like, I don't need this medication anymore. I want to feel. And then I realized, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm reverting back to my very angry ways, not understanding why things are upsetting me the way they are. So everything's a balance now. You know, even I'm glad that you don't, because I say it as a joke, and if you've seen Half Baked, that's another movie. Hopefully you've seen.
I have seen that.
Marijuana is not a drug. It is. Anything could be an addiction if you allow it to be.
Correct.
You know? So I've told my wife, if it ever becomes a problem, you tell me. I told her that when we first started dating. If me smoking weed is a problem, you know, you have more, you know, you're more important than that.
Totally.
All that being said, because what's also helped me is this podcast, believe it or not, talking to people like you, talking to rock stars, share their stories, knowing that we're not alone. So I know you said the quote unquote oldest band you grew up listening to was Linkin Park. But what about Guns N' Roses? They're still hip. They're, you know, they were in Thor. So I'm just curious. Obviously, Guns N' Roses podcast, Appetite for Distortion. Fan of the band? Ever seen them? I don't know if you've ever covered them. Any connection?
I didn't know who Guns N' Roses was before this.
You're serious? No, you're not. No, you're not. I was like, that would have blown my mind. Like, no.
I when I started listening to Guns N' Roses, the first song I heard from them was Night Train.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's from Appetite of Destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like 18, I think, at the time when I first heard them. And my buddy like just put it on, and that was the first fucking song. And I was like, oh, this shit's sick. And then he's like, yeah, Now that was the first time I really listened to him because, of course, I knew "Sweet Child of Mine" and "Welcome to the Jungle." Like I knew that kind of shit.
Right, in Paradise City. I mean, they're all on the radio. I mean, I
didn't even know Paradise City.
Okay.
I only knew the songs that were in Guitar Hero.
Okay, that's
so. Welcome to the Jungle, "Sweet Child of Mine," and so like listening to that track, I was like, "This is fucking sick." I was like, "This is Guns N' Roses. Like, this is really cool." And then we just proceeded to listen to the entire Appetite of Destruction album for 2 months straight.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like that's all. Our music taste it just consisted of a steady rotation of Avenged Sevenfold, Appetite of Destruction, specifically Appetite of Destruction, and then Blink-182.
Nice.
Yeah.
Avenged, also very heavily influenced by Guns N' Roses, and I like Blink. I saw them years and years ago with Green Day and Saves the Day. We'll see if they reunite, but I guess Travis is kind of occupied being a Kardashian now, I guess. And I know I roll. That's all you can. It's weird. It's
I hate these fucking. I hate it. Whatever.
The celebrity of it all. It is annoying, but no, that is really cool, and I love the perspective of different ages when they find the band. Because again, I'm 38. Appetite for Destruction, 35 years old. So I was only 4. I was listening to Muppet Babies and Ninja Turtles, but then I discovered it through, I guess, my dad, who would put on classic rock radio in the car. Then we have you discovering it through. That's why Slash did Guitar Hero, for a new generation. So those are the stories I really like, because we're not all going to be old school 80s rockers with denims. I love those guys. I just missed the cutoff for that. But when did you find this band? And that's where we all connect here. We all meet here in Appetite for Distortion. We meet new people, just like you, Bryan. So this was a lot of fun talking to anyone. I guess we'll just leave it with, what can people expect from a Fame on Fire show if they get, hopefully, when they go out and see you out on tour this year? Well,
you can expect me in the crowd, getting in your face. Even if you don't know the words, I don't give a shit. I'm getting in your face. You can expect a lot of movement on stage and probably some of the sweatiest people you'll see all day.
Nice. I love it.
High energy, high impact, not fucking around.
So check it out. They're not fucking around. So if they're coming to your town, Fame on Fire, the website, Instagram, Twitter, it's all the same. Very easy to find you. I always hate bands that it just makes it, it's like putting in a passcode, $, exclamation mark. I'm like, no, just make it easy. Just make it easy for me. So
yes, it's 420_69_fame_ on _fire. That's where you can find us. That's our website there.
// Gotcha.
.ca, because we couldn't afford .com.
.net. You only can look it up on Netscape. Oh wow, what a real end conversation with the nerdy talk. I love it. Bryan, thank you so much. Really nice to meet you. And I know you're coming to town, so hopefully, I'm thinking you're playing the Hammerstein Ballroom. I'll see you when you come to New York.
Beautiful. Look forward to it.
You got it. So we'll talk soon, buddy.
Yeah, we will. I'll see you, man.
Thank you, Bryan. And Bryan, the Bryan episode today. So thanks to the Bryans for coming on episode number 359 of Appetite for Distortion. And that is it for this episode. Don't forget, the conversation always continues in between the broadcasts. So please follow at the AFD Podcast on Twitter, Appetite for Distortion on Instagram, the AFD Podcast on Facebook. You can always email me, the AFD Show at gmail.com. Always check out YouTube. In between the broadcasts, I'm constantly updating the highlights, the clips and the highlights of older episodes, things you may have forgotten. So be sure to check us out on YouTube. So the next episode, Pyro Pete. I just like saying that, Pyro Pete. And Doug Goldstein going to be on the show. We're going to be doing a nice little, some reflection on the Use Your Illusion tour. I, unfortunately, was too young to go. So I'm going to live vicariously through their stories. So stick around. When will you see that? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it, I don't know, as soon as the word.